They wake with eyes open but souls asleep, bodies moving but minds idle, voices speaking but hearts silent, a world buzzing with noise, yet devoid of substance. This is the age of scattered minds and diluted dreams, of men who chase everything and catch nothing, of women who scroll through 1,000 lives and forget their own. The truth is harsh, but it must be said. Most people will never rise, not because they can't, but because they won't. They are too busy surviving to start living, too entangled in distraction to see clearly, too married to comfort to endure the furnace where greatness is forged. They think time is abundant, that there's always tomorrow, next year, next decade. But time is not generous. It is merciless. It waits for no one. It moves with or without your consent. The man who rises understands this. He wakes before the sun because he knows the sun doesn't rise for the lazy. He acts when others wait. He builds when others wish. He chooses purpose, not passivity. The great Confucius once said, "When it is obvious that the goals cannot be reached, don't adjust the goals, adjust the action steps." But today, most people lower their sights to match their laziness. They adjust their goals to fit their excuses. They measure effort in feelings, not outcomes. If it's hard, they stop. If it's slow, they quit. If it's uncertain, they retreat. They mistake friction for failure and discomfort for danger. But the man who rises welcomes the friction. He understands that resistance is not the enemy. It's the compass. It points to where growth is born. The weight of challenge builds the muscle of character. He doesn't avoid it. He seeks it. Because he knows that without resistance, there is no rise. Most people never rise because they are addicted to approval. They live to be seen, not to see. They crave validation like a drug. Every post, every comment, every like is a hit of dopamine, a brief illusion of worth. But he who rises does not live for applause. He lives in alignment. He walks a path of quiet conviction, whether watched or unseen. He does not bend to fit into the boxes others create. He builds his own frame. They ask, "What will they think of me?" He asks, "What will I think of myself if I don't do this?" The crowd moves with emotion. The man who rises moves with principle. They follow the trends. He follows the truth. Ego is the next chain that binds them. The fragile need to always be right. The refusal to be a student. The fear of looking foolish. But pride is not a foundation. It's a trapdoor. It collapses the moment life demands humility. And life always demands humility. The man who rises embraces his ignorance. He says, "I don't know," not as weakness, but as a starting point. He grows because he admits where he is small. Thomas Edison failed over 10,000 times before perfecting the light bulb. Each failure a lesson. Each mistake a stone on the road to illumination. He did not protect his ego. He protected his purpose. That is the difference. Most people never rise because they confuse movement with meaning. They are busy, not effective. They are in motion, not in progress. They chase goals they didn't choose, live lives they didn't design, and wonder why they feel empty. They mistake noise for clarity and speed for direction. But the man who rises asks himself daily, "What am I really building? What am I willing to sacrifice for it? What am I unwilling to compromise to keep it alive?" He knows that clarity is earned, not given. It is forged in the fire of introspection, in silence, in solitude, in saying no to the world so he can say yes to himself. Clarity is not found in a podcast or a post. It is found when the noise dies and the inner voice finally speaks. Vision follows clarity. And most people lack vision, not because they are blind, but because they never look beyond the moment. They live on the surface. They see only what is, not what could be. But the man who rises sees with the eye of the mind. He holds a vision so real it pulls him through pain, through setbacks, through draughts. When others break, he bends. When others panic, he plans. Walt Disney was told he lacked imagination. His ideas were rejected dozens of times. But he held the vision. He saw the magic before it existed. He walked through the dust and doubt and built an empire on belief. Not belief in luck, but belief in vision. That is the currency of the man who rises. But vision is nothing without purpose. Most people drift because they lack it. They wake up without why. They chase jobs, titles, followers, but have no inner compass. They are pulled by tides, not driven by direction. Purpose is what separates the wandering from the unwavering, and the man who rises is unwavering. He knows why he wakes up early. He knows why he grinds. He knows why he says no when it's easier to say yes. He knows why he stays when others leave, and why he speaks when others stay silent. Purpose is not a slogan. It is the flame that doesn't go out, even in the storm. And with purpose comes discipline, the silent partner of all great lives. Most people live by moods. They do what they feel like. They wait for motivation. They pray for inspiration. But he who rises does not wait. He decides. He builds systems. He builds habits. He builds walls between himself and distraction. Discipline is the highest form of self-respect. It says, I am worthy of this life, and I will act like it. Every rep, every hour, every choice, a vote for the man he is becoming. The man who rises is not more talented. He is more consistent. He doesn't need to be told. He doesn't need a spotlight. He does the work in the dark. Henry Ford once said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. But most people never test the truth of that. They let doubt make their decisions. They let fear cast their future. They dream in secret and die in regret. But the man who rises dreams aloud. Through action. He knows action is the bridge between who he is and who he must become. He takes the step. Then another. Then another. No fanfare. Just forward. And still, gratitude anchors him. While others complain about how far they have to go, he honors how far he's come. While others envy, he appreciates. Gratitude is not passivity. It is power. It sharpens perspective. It reminds him that progress is a privilege. That struggle is a sign of striving. That he is already rich in what matters. He thanks the pain. He honors the process. He walks with humility and power, hand in hand. But even gratitude must evolve. The world will not stop throwing punches. The man who rises must adapt. While others break in chaos, he adapts in silence. He evolves. He studies the terrain, then builds better tools. He doesn't wish for easier battles. He trains for tougher ones. Adaptability is survival with strategy. It's not just changing. It's changing with purpose. And from that adaptability, resilience is born. Not the fake kind that posts quotes but collapses at the first blow. The real kind, forged in failure, betrayal, loss. The kind that stands up when every voice says stay down. Abraham Lincoln lost election after election. He buried children, faced enemies within his own walls. But he rose, not because it was easy, because it was right. Resilience is remembering who you are when life tries to make you forget. Learning is the final weapon. Most people stop learning after school, but the man who rises is always in class. Life is his university. Pain is his professor. Failure is his textbook. He studies himself. He studies history. He studies others, not to copy, but to refine. He is not afraid to change his mind. He is afraid only of standing still. And when it all comes together, the mindset, the belief, the clarity, the vision, the purpose, the discipline, the action, the gratitude, the adaptability, the resilience, and the relentless commitment to learn, the man rises, not because he was chosen, but because he chose. He chose to move with purpose, and so he never needed permission. But even when a man rises, the world won't always applaud, because rising exposes others. It rattles the mediocrity they've wrapped themselves in. It challenges the excuses they've spent years perfecting. And most people would rather mock your ascent than confront their own stagnation. So they'll call you arrogant. They'll say you've changed. They'll whisper about how you think you're better than them. But they don't understand. You didn't rise to be better than anyone. You rose to be better than who you used to be. You rose because the alternative was spiritual decay. You rose because your potential was screaming louder than your fear. You see, the climb isn't lonely because there's something wrong with it. It's lonely because so few choose it. People gather at the bottom. They bond in complaining. They nod together in passive agreement, convincing each other that average is acceptable, that delay is harmless, that dreaming is childish. But the man who rises knows every time he compromises his calling to make others comfortable, a part of him dies. So he lets go of the need to be liked, of the need to be understood, of the need to be invited, included, approved. He walks alone because he walks in truth, and truth by its very nature divides. Confucius said, "The superior man is modest in his speech, but exceeds in his actions." In a world loud with empty declarations, the man who rises speaks with his life. He doesn't post about the grind. He is the grind. He doesn't preach discipline. He becomes discipline. He doesn't chase status. He radiates substance. And there's something dangerous about that. Something magnetic. Not because it's flashy, but because it's rare. Because in a sea of people trying to be someone, he became someone worth being. That's what terrifies the masses. Not his success, his conviction. Not his wins, his willingness. Not his power, his peace. Because he doesn't react, he responds. He doesn't chase, he attracts. He doesn't perform, he lives. He doesn't compete, he creates. And creation, that's the highest act of defiance in a world of imitation. To create your own standard, your own pace, your own future. That's why most people never rise. They're too busy repeating what's been done to imagine what could be. They inherit beliefs like they inherit furniture, without question, without inspection. They don't challenge their programming, because questioning is uncomfortable. But the man who rises would rather be uncomfortable than unconscious. He stares down the inherited lies. He dismantles the beliefs that limit. He rewrites the rules. He redraws the borders. He redefines what's possible, not just for himself, but for those who will follow. And that is legacy. The man who rises doesn't just build for himself. He builds beyond himself. He builds bridges. He carves paths. He leaves blueprints, because he knows his rise is not just about his elevation. It's about expansion, of what it means to live, of what it means to lead, of what it means to leave the world with more light than he found it. He becomes the lighthouse, and that's the paradox of rising. It starts as a selfish act. You do it to survive, to escape, to evolve. But eventually, your rise becomes a gift. To your family, to your children, to your community, to the stranger who watches from afar and whispers, "Maybe I can rise too." That's why the man who rises stays the course. Not for claps, not for cash, but for calling. Because at some point in the journey, purpose overtakes pride. Mission overtakes ego. And you realize you didn't come this far to be seen. You came this far to become. You are not here to impress. You are here to impact. You are not here to fit in. You are here to stand firm. You are not here to please. You are here to pierce the darkness with light. That's why most people never rise. Because rising costs you everything fake. And they are not ready to give that up. But you are. Because you've tasted the hunger that comfort couldn't kill. You've heard the silence behind the noise. You've met the part of yourself that doesn't settle. And now that you've heard it, you cannot unhear it. Now that you've felt it, you cannot unfelt it. Now that you've seen the man you could become, you cannot unsee him. He is waiting. Not in the sky, not in some far-off fantasy, but in the next decision, the next action, the next refusal to be ordinary. You don't need permission to rise. You don't need a stage to start. You don't need a map. You need a mirror. Look at him, the man inside. The one who doesn't flinch when it's hard. The one who keeps his word. The one who doesn't compromise when it counts. The one who stands when it would be easier to kneel. That is who you are. Not what the world told you. Not what failure whispered. Not what fear tried to convince you. You are not most people. You are the exception. You are the anomaly. You are the rise. And the rise begins now.